everyone. My name is Dr. Sheena Jacob, and I successfully defended my dissertation and graduated from the School of Education in May 2020. I am currently a K-12 district coordinator for social studies in a suburban school district on Long Island. In my current role as a K-12 district social studies coordinator, I've been responsible for implementing new curriculum programs, professional development, implementing best practices in curriculum and instruction, and working collaboratively with colleagues and educators across the district, region, state, and national level. I'm also active in outside professional organizations for social studies, which includes being a board member and a publisher liaison for the Long Island Council for Social Studies, co-chairing the Cultural Education Committee for the New York State Council for Social Studies, and I'm an active member of the Advisory Council for Rho Kappa National Social Studies Honor Society for the National Council for Social Studies. I'm excited to be here with you today to discuss my dissertation. Thank you for this opportunity. My research focuses on the perception of implementation of civic education curriculum in a suburban school district. Before I continue at this time, I would like to acknowledge my mentor, Dr. Rosalba Corrado Del Vecchio, who worked very close with me, and with her guidance and knowledge, I truly evolved from a student of research to an academic researcher, and my committee members, Dr. Mary Ellen Freely and Dr. James Campbell, who supported and provided me with an incredible insight for a successful dissertation and research. In this research, civic education involves curriculum elements such as courses, resources, programs that include guest speakers, assemblies, projects, portfolios, and urges students to understand, engage, and participate in civic activities at the local, state, and national level. According to the United States Census Bureau, voting in America, young people today lack the interest, trust, and knowledge about American politics, politicians, and public life. Since 18 years old were first given the right to vote in the 1972 elections, the voter turnout rate of 18 to 24 years old is consistently low. The lack of participation in voting could indicate the lack of emphasis of civic participation amongst its youths. To support this study, research that was used in this study in the literature review section includes and supports civic education implementation, civic participation, and research that can be found at the higher education level that supports institutions implementing civic education. Two articles that supported the institutions implementing civic education include Civic Responsibility at the Higher Education by T. Elric and The Perceptions of Personal Civic Responsibility Amongst Undergrad Students at the University of Kansas by C. Everhart in 2017. To take a closer look at the civic responsibility in higher education by T. Elric, the research supports essays by professors in higher education, and the center focuses on John Dewey's mandate that American democracy requires civic engagement to realize the potential of its citizens and communities, and educates is the key to engagement. In the perceptions of personal civic responsibility among undergrad students at the University of Kansas, C. Everhart uses and focuses on his study, identifies the predictors of students' perceptions of personal civic responsibility, civic mindedness, among undergrad students at Kansas University. C. Everhart uses specific data, the 2015 multi-institution study of leadership, and it correlates the relationship between Kansas University institutional environment and self-reported perception of personal civic responsibility. Prior research in his study suggests the self-efficacy for civic engagement and the intentions to become civically engaged result later on civic engagement. In addition, in this qualitative study, the theory conceptual framework supports the three theories: civic theories approach, zone proximal development, and hands-on approach learning. The civic theory approach can be found in What We Know About Engineering Civic Identity by James Eunice. Interaction Between Learning and Development by Lev Vitasi supports zone proximal development, and The Democracy and Education by John Dewey on the hands-on approach learning. These these theories and conceptual framework, it's important to know that this is used as a guide in qualitative research because you cannot box in a theoretical conceptual framework because qualitative, you can find other frameworks as you proceed on with the study. The purpose of this qualitative research study was to explore and develop an understanding of teachers and K-12 social studies coordinator perception of civic education, and analyze how the program was implemented in the suburban school district. The specific research questions for the studies are as follows. Research question 1. What are the perceptions of the implementation of civic education program for the K-12 social studies curriculum in a suburban school district? Research question 2. How is the civic education program in K-12 social studies implemented? The research aims to provide an example of New York State school districts' implementation and perception of civic education curriculum. It also aims to fill a gap or a need of such examples locally and nationally, and to provide ideas for educators and researchers incorporating civic education in their districts. The definitions and terms within this study are the following: civic community context, civic education, civic engagement, civic identity and commitment. These definitions that come from these terms are not my own. I have used terms and the definitions from the Association of American College and Universities, where faculty and experts representing colleges and universities across the United States examine many campus rubrics and related documents, and from each learning outcome incorporated additional feedback from faculty members. And they developed this inquiry analysis value rubric, where it identifies these terms and definitions. In this qualitative research study, the research is an exploratory case study design. The instrument is the human researcher, and ensuring credibility, dependability, and confirmability. Credibility, the naturalistic inquiry, and a prolonged period of engagement, which to build trust and rapport took place. Also, in dependability, thick description, cross-checking, corroboration was taken place, and confirmability, the researcher, myself, triangulated the data, reflective journal and self-analysis, and member checking was done. Qualitative researchers interview and observe participants to gain a deeper understanding of the participants in a way that cannot be captured by quantitative measurements of such as surveys or other instruments. The case study methodology is best used to understand the participants' feelings, perception, understanding of the topic that is being researched. The case study can further be characterized as exploratory rather than explanatory. An exploratory case study, according to Berg 2001, is typically used as an intuitive investigation that is made in the early stages of detailed research being conducted in a particular area, such as the area of interest in this study. The school district that was used in this study was called Pacific School District. That's the pseudonym given to the school district. It is located in a suburban school district in New York. It has one high school from grades 9 through 12, one middle school grades 6 through 8, and 3 elementary schools from grades K to 5. The K-12 social studies coordinator also participated. 4 years in the school district, 12 years as a teacher. Secondary education teacher, which is known as teacher number 1, the pseudonym given to the participant, was a 12th grade teacher who has 16 years of teaching in the district and is a Long Island Council for Social Studies and New York State Council for Social Studies member. An elementary teacher, teacher number 2, the pseudonym given to the participant, which is a 5th grade teacher who has 28 years of teaching, 22 of them in the Pacific School District, and has spent 19 years in 3rd grade and 3 years of teaching in the 5th grade. Here is a copy of the civic engagement value rubric that was used in the study as interviews. Document analysis was taking place. In addition, a schedule of interviews when data collection, procedures, and trustworthiness of design occurred. Interview 1, for example, in the K-12 Socialized Coordinator was completed in 2019. It established background, perception, and implementation of civic education program. The second interview took place in December 2019. The focus on specific details of the participants' experience, perception, and implementation of the civic education program. And the third interview, January 2020, took place reflect on the meaning of experience, perception, implementation of civic education program. And at that time, the data was being confirmed. Likewise, it was similar done to teacher number 1 and teacher number 2. In addition, I came into classrooms and observed teacher 1 in December 2019 in 12th grade civics course introduction activity, and then the second observation that took place focused on students' civic projects and presentations. For teacher number 2 at the elementary level took place in December 2019, where I went in and observed 5th grade elementary social studies lessons in the U.S. government, and then the second observation came place in the 5th grade elementary with focusing on lessons on business and community. For the triangulation method, the document analysis that took place between December 2019 and January 2020 for all 3 participants. Documents that took review were the 12th grade civic course syllabus and curriculum, the 5th grade business community program, and the K-12 student activities that focuses on civic participation for the 2019 and 20 school year. The document review 2 was the 12th grade civics course, student projects, posters, and pamphlets, midterm final student portfolio, and document review number 3 was 5th grade lesson on U.S. government. The coding mechanism that took place was open coding, which is identifying, naming, categorizing, describing the phenomena by Strauss, Corbin, and Saldana. It was used to categorize and sort the data into useful sections. It was used to assist with deciphering the research, interaction, and observations. For example, the theme of civic engagement manifested in words such as duty, social conscience, and democracy in the transcripts and documents. The theme of civic identity and commitment manifest in words as commitment, responsibility, and work with others. And here are some of the findings that took place. For research question 1, what are the perceptions of the implementation of civic education program for the K-12 socialized curriculum in Suburban School District? We have themes that came across: civic engagement, teach civics to help students to get involved with decision making that impacts their lives. So if you're looking at my dissertation, stated by the K-12 social studies coordinator and teacher 1 and teacher 2, and that can be found in table 8. The civic identity and commitment to implement civic education program with fidelity was stated by the coordinator, teacher 1 and teacher 2. Civic knowledge, have students understand facts, theories from one's own academic study field, discipline to civic engagement, and to one's own participation in civic life, politics, and government. And civic context and structures, have students demonstrate the ability and commitment to collaboratively work across within community contexts and structures to achieve civic aim. And that was stated by K-12 social studies coordinator, teacher 1 and teacher 2, and can be found in table 11. For research question number 2, how is the civic education program in K-12 social studies implemented? What emerged consistently from these interviews and reviews of documents were the following. The implementation of civic education depended upon the New York State framework. Both teachers have used the social studies framework as a guide for civics in the classroom. The community influence on district and building decision is a factor, and at times is seen as a barrier that prevents true civic participation from occurring in the district. Additional programs that support civics may be promoted through the different schools and districts, but not under K-12 social studies coordinator. And the lack of support initiated by building leadership, central leadership, and community hinders the extent and depth of student participation and involvement. So for evidence, K-12 social studies coordinator stated curriculum writing for all social studies courses and grade levels and K-12 social studies coordinators is a priority. However, if teachers are not committed or if the central administration does not provide financial support, then civic education would not be reflective of the social studies curriculum. Now, for the discussions and implications, some have stated K-12 social studies coordinator, teacher 1 and teacher 2 perception of civic education is that value and necessary curriculum. support from central administration, community members, and the Board of Education, and making implementation of civic education a priority by adopting implementation as a district-wide goal to attain support and commitment for the stakeholders. So, for instance, K-12 social studies coordinator stated the lack of community commitment in conjunction with competing programs from other disciplines and the time need to effectively develop a K-12 civic education program encouraged students to actively engage presents tremendous hurdles. Teacher 1 and Teacher 2 expressed, would love to further implement civic education, but limited to resources, administration, community support, and commitment to successfully implement programs that support civic education. Here are some limitations of the study. One case, few participation, one location. If the study was to be conducted again, it is strongly suggested that additional school districts participate. A mixed study should be conducted, qualitative and quantitative research, focusing on serving K-12 social studies coordinators and directors. Recommendations for future research: how can districts implement on K-12 civic education curriculum for all students in the district? Analyze the short and long-term effects of implementing such a program at the local, state, and national level. Understanding the pros and cons of such implementation includes fidelity of implementation, professional development of the educators that are involved to implement the program. In addition, advanced researching on how schools are implementing civic education to assist future civic education programs, allocation of appropriate sufficient resources, district and community support for civic education implementation in K-12 schools, and understanding the role and impact the instructional leadership and Board of Education has within the program implementation. To conclude, the research aimed to provide an example of New York State school district implementation, perception of civic education curriculum, try to provide to fill a gap or a need of such examples locally and nationally, provide ideas for educators and researchers incorporating civic education in the districts. A call to arms for civic education. I wanted to end off with a quote. A new report is the latest to sound alarm about the consequence of American students' poor civics knowledge. Today, young people are disengaged from civic process, voting in record low rates in 2014. If you have any questions, concerns, please always reach out for me, and thank you for your attention.